Coming up on Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, is there a Windows for education in the wings? S rears its SE head. Microsoft has a consistency problem. Paul helps aggravate my OCD. And believe it or not, Mary Jo Foley asks a question about the Xbox. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 567, recorded April 25th, 2018. Windows, it's not you, it's us. It's time for Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. We're a fantastic portal into the world of Microsoft. I'm Father Robert Ballister, the digital Jesuit, in for Leo Laporte, who's currently in Japan for his Power Ranger training. Paul Thurrott, of course, is the purveyor of news, reviews, and analysis for tech enthusiasts at Thurrott.com. And Mary Jo Foley is the gentlewoman who pilots ZDNet's All About Microsoft blog. Together, they're the dynamic duo, ready to give you everything you need to know about Microsoft. Paul, Mary Jo, how you doing?
Good. It's been too long, Padre.
It's been like 4 or 5 months.
I'm glad you're here because, frankly, we need a little bit of an exorcism, and I'm not sure if that's your line of business, but
they just reopened the training courses for that in the Vatican.
I saw that.
So I could do it as a learning annex, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk because there's some stuff going on with Windows right now I'm not completely on board with.
Oh, well, I mean, that's very rare for you to have something.
Yeah, that's rare for him.
Right?
Yeah.
That sounded sarcastic, but I don't know what you mean.
You know, it's funny. I've been going back and forth. Of course, I'm all in on the Microsoft platform, but I switched from Chrome to Edge for about a month. I really tried sticking with it. I thought, okay, if I keep using it, all those little issues will go away. Never quite did. And then I went to Firefox, and now I'm back to Chrome, as much as I dislike that. And I've even gained appreciation for Microsoft's automatic updates, even though they've always tended to update at the worst possible time. So I don't know, Paul. I might actually be a Microsoft optimist at this time.
Wow. Good timing on that, by the way. But I'm actually prepping an article that will be one of those good, bad, and ugly type things, you know, Windows 10 after 3 years. And I would say, because I wrote it, that absolutely the updating stuff is in the pro column. As much as we may not like the, twice a year feature updates and the regular cumulative or quality updates, they seem to go pretty seamlessly for the most part. So I think we have to give Microsoft some credit for that. And if you don't buy into what I just said, I would just urge you to reinstall Windows 7 and see how that goes, because updating Windows 7 takes so long now. It's a career. I don't even know how anyone does that.
Every once in a while, I will bring back an old machine and I'll re-image it from Windows 7 disks, and it's amazing. It's now like a 72-hour process because you think you're done, and then it kicks off the next set.
Yes, yeah. So you reboot, and you think, well, surely this will be it.
No.
And no. And then there's another set of updates that takes an interminable amount of time to install, and then you reboot. You think, well, maybe that will be it. And then, no, there's a couple of .NET Framework things. Those take forever for some reason. And you reboot again, and you think, well, okay, maybe.
Nope.
No. It just
I can
keeps
never
going
take Windows 7 off here. I got to keep it on my desktop just because of that.
Like you don't want to go through it again, for sure.
No.
You want to, you don't mess up a working Windows 7 install. You just leave it alone.
It's such a rare creature. It's like a unicorn running in the wild.
You want to poke the bear, or you just want to leave that thing alone?
Oh, now, Mary Jo, I've got a desktop. I've got two desktops, one running 10 and one running 7. And for me, I have moved past that point where it's now difficult for me to move back to 7.
You have?
Right. I'm there. I'm not sure if the two of you are there yet, but
no, I'm not there.
So there's still.
I'm impressed that you can go back and forth because you use Windows 10 on your other computer.
I do.
And you don't have any
No, because what's
I
in
know
10
that
that,
usability wise. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
what's in 10 that is different for me than using 7?
What's in 10? It's just the look and feel, really. I mean,
you know me. I don't see those things.
I mean,
I don't
She's
see
still
UI
working
stuff.
in Notepad, Paul.
I am.
yeah, but your
like,
notepad has glass around it. You know, like it is really different looking.
Yeah, Mary Jo, don't you want a transparent Notepad?
I really could not care less.
There you go.
I know, shocking.
It is a little bit shocking. No, but we're not here to talk about Notepad. We're here to bring all things Microsoft to the good people. Now, I know the two of you are heading off to Microsoft Build. Is it next week, or when do you start your pilgrimage?
I go a week from Friday.
Okay.
I'm going early. My wife's coming out for the weekend ahead of Build. Yeah.
I'm going Saturday.
And Build, and Build starts the Monday after that, which is what, May 7th or something?
Yeah.
May 6th.
I'll be covering the keynote on Monday
7th.
From the studio.
Oh, you will, yeah.
Originally, I was going to go to Build, but I can't.
So we might want to talk to you about that, because Mary Jo just found out today. I know this is later in the list, but it might be worth mentioning up front that there are now two keynotes. There's a Monday and a Tuesday, and that was not the case originally.
No, it was not.
No. So I wonder if they're going to live stream the second keynote or not, or if it'll just be on demand. So the second keynote is Joe Belfiore, and that's Windows. Tuesday.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately they've kind of gone back to the way it used to be, because people like me and I think a lot of people watching this podcast are more interested in the Windows stuff, right?
Right.
And that means that Monday is going to be cloud mostly, and there'll be IoT and stuff in there. I'm sure there's going to be other interesting things, but our original expectation was that we were going to sit through 2 hours of Azure whatever, and then finally get 15 or 20 minutes of Windows. But apparently, I think for political reasons, I think they're trying to calm people down a little bit about what's going on with Windows. They've given Windows the second day for its own keynote. They've never really announced that, have they? I mean, they did it. I know it's in the notes, but in the show.
Yeah.
list.
Yesterday they posted a bunch of the sessions for Build, and now we can see more about what the schedule looks like. So Monday's keynote starts at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. It's Satya Nadella, 8:30 to 10. And Scott Gu from 10 to 11:30 on the first day.
It's gonna be a long
Second day, I know. Second day is Joe Belfiore, 8:30 to 10, and his topic is on the keynote list, says Microsoft 365 application development. Doesn't say Windows. It says Microsoft 365.
Well, but Windows has
but Windows is part of that, obviously. Yep.
So this is a little disappointing on a number of levels, but we have also already scheduled Windows Weekly for Monday, knowing that there was only going to be one keynote. And now, of course, the thing we'd like to talk about the most is happening the day after we're talking.
Right.
So,
nice.
Although, you know what? There'll be sessions on Monday that will probably touch on the things that we care about during the day. And Satya will still, I'm sure, announce some of the things that Joe will dig deeper into, right?
Yeah. And I assume as we're having this discussion that Alex is frantically calling Leo in Japan right now so that he's surprised at this, because that's going to be a weird surprise for him when he gets home, I imagine.
So Monday will be 365 Azure IoT, and Tuesday will be Windows Server and all the more traditional software platforms.
Yeah, I think Monday also we'll hear like quantum computing probably on Monday, AI, machine learning, all that stuff on Monday.
Is there enough to fill 2 hours with just Windows?
There'll be customer things, customer case studies and demos and
sense.
blah.
They can do more client stuff too. I mean, we don't know what else is going to be happening there. But 2 hours of just Windows? No, I actually have a hard time believing that, but we shall see.
I know.
Now, Lou Maresca, he's my co-host on Twiat. He's actually the man who's going to be taking over when I leave, but he had set up an appointment for me to be able to shoot from the Microsoft Treehouse and from the Amazon spheres. So if you want to reach out, maybe you could just take those. That might be kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
You guys should do that for your Brad podcast. Go to the Sphere.
Yeah, Brad could dress up as an Ewok.
It's Brad. There's Brad.
and show up at the treehouse.
Okay, now speaking of build, one of the things that people are anticipating is Microsoft Windows 10 Lean. What is Lean? It sounds like a new flavor of Hot
Windows
Pocket.
10. It's low carb.
I like that. Low carb, no fat. Yeah, so, okay, we don't really know what Lean is. TFW Boredom on Twitter, whose name is Lucan, Lucan, he was digging into the latest Redstone 5 test build, and he found a mention of Windows 10 Lean. Sorry, I'm having a little cat issue here.
Is it me or is that cat the size of a puma now?
He's getting bigger and bigger. He is. He saw this list of additions of Windows 10, and it mentioned Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Home N, and then Windows 10 Lean. And I've been asking around since he posted this to try to see if any of my contacts knew what this was, and they were like, "What? Huh? What is this?" Yeah. So my first thought was maybe Lean was the official name for Windows 10 Core OS, which is this new kind of chassis thing that they're building for Windows 10 where you layer stuff on top of it. But I don't think that's what it is.
No, it's not. Actually, the guy who found this determined that it wasn't that. And I don't remember the exact rationale behind it. But so other places like this site you're looking at now think that this is some yet another attempt to get Windows onto smaller device, smaller PCs with less storage. And Microsoft has lots of goofy things in the works, but I think we all understand that ship sailed. Like, we're not going to see 16 gig laptops and 16 gig tablets, 8-inch tablets, where it's not 5 years ago anymore, folks. And that makes zero sense. That said, I don't have any sources telling me this, but having talked to various sources about some different things over the past few weeks, for example, with the understanding that Andromeda is still a thing, it is a dual screen device, is based on Windows 10 and not some new mobile contraption. I actually think this thing is, and this is again just an educated guess, I think this thing is aimed at Andromeda and Andromeda class devices. In other words, a new kind of mobile device that they haven't announced yet. And if you think about the timing of this stuff, I think Mary Jo had mentioned before the expected timing of Andromeda would be RS5, which is this fall. This is in RS5, that the screen you just showed was the setup screen. And if you look at that same setup screen today in RS4, RS3, what you see in there instead of Windows 10 Lean is Windows 10S. And Windows 10S is not going to exist anymore in these new versions. So actually, you don't see it in RS4. I apologize. Instead, what you're going to get is S mode as a mode of Windows 10 Home and Pro. And depending on how you acquire the thing, it might be the default mode. So based on the information that Lucan provided, and I've not seen this thing personally, this thing behaves like a even more restrictive version of Windows 10S. So it doesn't run desktop applications at all. There's no error dialog that comes up or anything. If you download anything from the internet using Edge, which is the only browser that works in the system, it just fails silently. There's no pop-up dialog or whatever. And I think this kind of speaks to this notion of a lower resource device. It's not a PC exactly, And that's why I think it's this new kind of thing and not a netbook class, same old. I think there's no, what is the point otherwise of doing something like this? It just doesn't make any sense.
So this is not a Windows CE for 10 or Windows Embedded for 10. This is
No, it's Windows 10. Again, based on the description, I've not seen it, but it appears to be Windows 10 S without any workarounds. And that once you've kind of exercised, to use that word again today, that those parts of the system that aren't necessary to actually run those underlying desktop apps as much as you can, because obviously some of it has to be retained. You arrive at a system that apparently requires less disk space, uses less resources, et cetera.
So sorry about that. My cat just unplugged my computer again, as he does every once in a while. It's like, I don't want you talking, so stop. No, so I missed this, but I think somebody has found that this does run Win32 apps, the Lean thing.
Well, it would have to. So I should say, right. I'm sorry. What I meant is it's more restrictive. It prevents it in a way. It doesn't say, hey, there's a way out of it.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, you can't completely get rid of Win32. I mean, it's there. But I think the point of it is if you prevent it from running Win32 apps in a way that is really meaningful, that system can then use lower reason. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. The memory management model on Win32 is completely different than it is for store apps, right?
Yeah.
The store app model is based on, it's a mobile app platform. You know, these things have sleep states and they're more elegant and so forth. So I think it's designed to assume that that's the only thing that's ever going to happen.
Yeah. So I also have seen the reports, Windows Central and others have been saying Windows 10 for storage constrained devices, right? But the name Cloud E that is attached to this makes me wonder more what that is too, right? Because remember, Windows 10S was codenamed Windows Cloud for a while, or that was like the working name, right? So here's this thing, Cloud with a capital E. The E could be Edge, like the browser. The E could be Edge, like Intelligent Cloud, Intelligent Edge, right?
Could be, just efficient, or efficiency.
Maybe, right? So that, and to your point, like, why are they going to bother to try to pick up those storage constrained devices? Maybe for security reasons would be the only reason, like how they didn't want people running Windows XP. Maybe they're also like, wow, if we don't give the people running this something, they're going to be running old versions of Windows 10 that aren't being patched.
I just had the most horrible idea. And I almost hate to say this out loud because some people have wondered about the viability of such a product. What if this was, God, I hate to even say this. What if this was a Windows Chromebook, except it was an Edge book?
That was my guess.
No, please.
That was my other guess. Yeah.
Right?
But here's the thing. In other words, everyone's saying that it's 2 gigabytes lighter for the full installation.
Look,
that's not
in the scheme,
huge.
In the scheme of, a 128 gig SSD doesn't cost anything.
Right.
Saving 2 gigs on 128 is nothing. I don't understand the point of that. The real reason you kind of debulk that system is for runtime, right? That's where the advantages of because then you have a system with, like, say, 2 gigs of RAM or whatever it might be, and it can run more efficiently. And so we know that store apps, native store apps, UWP apps, will probably run fairly effectively in that system. And then there's these PWAs coming along, right? So far, I would say the available PWAs in the store have been on the lackluster side, but that's going to change. And I hate to even, it's such a weird kind of road to go down, but because Edge to me is one of the things in the con column for Windows 10 today, not the pro column, but Microsoft knows where, people are spending their time on the web, as we've said before, and yada, yada, yada. I mean, maybe the solution for schools, which was part of the deal for Windows 10S, makes more sense. Maybe web apps make more sense, both for those customers and for Microsoft.
Sorry, I didn't mean to gong you.
Did your cat gong you?
No, that was me. I didn't mean to, though, because I think you're onto something. What if E is for education?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because Microsoft's making a big push. Their Microsoft for Education platform. They're putting it right up against Google for Education. If that's what this is, then the 2 gigabytes does make sense if this is going into a thin client.
That's right. Yeah. God, we're talking ourselves into this. It's so depressing. If you think back to what Microsoft announced last May around education, forget the Surface laptop thing. That actually had nothing to do with education. The real big initiative in my mind that they introduced, and I can't remember what they called it, but it was this easy management system where they could take USB keys and pop them into computers, and they would kind of auto reset so that students could use them again, right? So one of the big strengths
Intune for education, are you thinking, or no?
No, this is just the deployment tool that they had. In other words, you get in a rack full of laptops. You make you create your system image. It's something like a normal human being could do, a teacher. You don't need IT staff for this. You can just go through a series of wizards. Then you can make some number of keys. Hopefully you're not walking around to 30 of these things with 1 key, but maybe you have 10 keys. So you can do 10 at a time times 3, whatever. It resets every computer in that lab to the system image that you want. It happens fairly quickly. It's kind of a rough approximation of some of the management deployment stuff that Google offers through Chrome OS. And I actually think that, when you think about education's reaction to Chrome OS, how well students like it, how well teachers like it, how well the educational institutions themselves like it, A lot of that has to do not so much with the system itself, although that's part of it, but rather with these capabilities, right? Because these guys not only can't afford the computers and the software and the services and whatever else, but they can't afford the IT staff to manage the stuff. And so the ability to be able to do it yourself is really important. But the Microsoft thing is still kind of ham-handed. Like it's not as elegant as what Google has. It's probably not as quick either. Right. And so maybe making a simpler version, smaller version of Windows aids in both the cost and the management and / deployment aspect of it.
Well, the performance is what concerns me, because Chrome is designed to run on lightweight hardware, and it runs quite nicely.
Yeah, it really does.
An x86 Windows, no matter what kind of efficiency that you've put into it, is not going to run well on low-end hardware. Just period.
This also follows kind of a weird continuum, because I'm going to complain about Windows 10 on ARM a little bit, and I'll try to restrain myself. I know Mary Jo has the gong ready for this one, but there is a continuum of ideas at Microsoft where they have this thing called Windows 10S and then S mode, and it's basically like, look, we want to try to prevent you from running Windows desktop apps for some reason. We have whatever reasons, and if you can do that, the result is this thing that is maybe more secure, more reliable, has better performance, and so forth. It's kind of unproven, but that's the theory. But there's a way out of it, right? You can switch to Pro or out of S mode in the new version. And then Windows 10 on ARM, same thing. It comes with Windows, in S mode or Windows 10S, but you can get it to Pro. And then there's a different level of stuff you can and can't do because of the emulation. It's 32-bit only, and there are performance issues and so forth. But there's kind of a little way forward. But each of these things, really what it is some kind of weird restriction. It's just like it's like we have this thing, we can't seem to get past it. Let's restrict it in some way. Oh, that didn't work. Well, let's restrict it in this other way. Yeah, it's not working either. Let's restrict it in this third way. And I unfortunately, this is I think just a natural side effect of the fact that Microsoft didn't have a successful mobile platform. Right. Because I think if they did, they might have built that out instead, and it would have become a more elegant thing that might have been better suited for these low resource environments like you see in education. It's just that they're stuck with Windows. They keep trying to chop parts of it off to see if they can make it fly.
Well, not just chop. Yeah. One of the biggest problems has been the fact that all of their lower end versions of Windows have been there to sell the more advanced versions of Windows. There was always that upgrade path. They've never said, this is the operating system you're going to get, and this is the best it will get. That's what you need if you want a Chromebook style Windows box.
Right. And since they're kind of going back with Windows 10S, and they're like, the original plan was that was going to be what they brought to the education market, I think. And now that they're having to say it's a mode and you can switch out of it for free, probably because they're doing that now, that's taken away their premise that it would be a good education OS. So maybe this is it. Maybe this thing is it, right?
Well, the other thing is, I would say even Windows 10S, if you just accept it at face value and for some reason you believe that you could run store apps in the Edge browser, and that's everything you'll ever need. 2 gigabytes of RAM is not enough for a system like that. It just isn't. Even a child in an educational setting is going to run into resource issues and that kind of in that situation. It's going to be a bad experience. Yeah. And so I don't know. The Lean E, whatever this thing is called. It seems like, again, I don't think it's about disk space, although those devices by nature will have smaller disks. They'll have 32 gigabyte eMMC storage type situations instead of 128 SSD. But I think the real issue there is just resource in total. It's RAM, disk space, processing power, cost. It's a product
looking for a use case, and that's not a good place to be.
Until you look at education, and then you realize here it is. Here's a mass market that has big implications for the future because the kids who use this stuff are going to go out into the workforce someday. It's important. They have no money. They have no money. And they can't afford to have IT staff managing these complex systems. So they can't afford good computers, and they can't afford the people they need to manage those good computers. That's why they're buying Chromebooks. And so maybe, what is it, third time's the try? Is that always the Microsoft thing?
No,
is this the third one? I don't know.
This will work as long as it's a decent experience, though. When people buy a Chromebook, they get the Chromebook experience, and it's pretty decent for the expense. If this is just a crippled Windows box.
Yeah, yet another crippled Windows box.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the fear, because the last thing you want is kids coming up out of education having bad experiences with Microsoft and Windows and saying, I don't care what happens next, but I don't want to use this piece of crud again. I would like to use something that actually works.
I can't wait till I'm successful so I can buy a real computer. That would be it. That's a horrible message.
And by real computer, they mean a Chromebook. And and that would be depressing. Yeah.
Mary Jo, are you going to buy one? Will you be on Team Lean?
I would give it a shot. I really want to try one of these Windows 10 on ARM machines because I'm the perfect person for this, right? Like when I reviewed the Surface laptop and it had Windows 10s, I didn't like the laptop, but I liked Windows 10s because for me, that's all I really need, right? And
I'll tell you what, I'll give you this HP thing I've got, and you can
I'd like to try it
because I'm just about done reviewing it.
I would like to try it. Yeah, when you're done, I would like to.
I do believe that you would be mostly okay with it, right? That's my gut feeling. And because I understand the way that you work and the things that you use, and I think you would be okay with it.
I do too.
But I also, I do. And I think you'll like the connectivity stuff. Actually, there's a Verizon SIM I can give you too that it will, you can use that part of it. I think you'll like it. It's a nice device. That's the killer for this machine, actually. I have to say, this is a beautiful tablet, 2-in-1 laptop, whatever you want to call it. It's the hardware is nice, the form factor, et cetera. It's really nice. But there has been, I don't know, maybe I don't feel like I've been searching for it, but the performance issues are very real and they're obvious. And I don't think it's not like this Surface Class thing we've been joking about where you may or may not notice it. You'll notice it. And the question is whether it gets in the way. And this is the kind of thing I've been struggling with, because the one thing I've said about Windows 10 on ARM in the past is that, the performance is kind of slow, but it's so much better being able to run the one thing you need occasionally, right? Photoshop Elements or whatever. Actually, I can't run that. That's a terrible example. It doesn't work on this. Okay, well, let me find some other example.
Markdown pad. How about Markdown pad?
Markdown pad. Okay. It's a good example because actually that does work and it is slow. Except that I want to use it every day, and that's terrible. But anyway, the point is, it's better to have it and have it be slow than to have it just be impossible. But the frustration of Windows 10 on ARM is that actually that Photoshop example or the driver example where you have Microsoft mouse and you want to install the drivers. It's not going to work. It will not. It won't install any x86 drivers. It won't install any x64 software. And the problem on that latter, actually on both of those things, is that the normal user has no understanding of what I just said.
Right.
To them, they'll install something like Chrome will just install and work. It may be a little slow, but it will work, and that's neat. Markdown pad is a stupid example, but it installs and it just works, and that's neat. But the drivers will never work, and that's frustrating. And every once in a while, you're going to hit an application like Photoshop where nope. And the thing that it says when it fails will make no sense to anybody. And I think it's like using Edge, like Padre was just saying. At first, you're like, this is going to be fine. This is good. I like this thing. And then over time, it's like little fish nipping away at you, and then eventually it gets really annoying.
Cuts. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Little tiny issues.
And it's a tough thing because for a product like this, for example, as a reviewer, I think ultimately what I have to say about this thing is I can't recommend it, period. Yeah. Not if you are doing this, and this, it might be okay. I think ultimately what I have to say is you should not buy this product. And it's tough because it's a nice machine. It's a miracle of computer science that this thing runs x86 apps at all. It's crazy. But my God, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's not like it was a low-cost device. It's a premium device with an ARM processor in it.
Yeah, right. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that bit of it too, because yes, it's a beautiful looking machine. It's got all the premium cred you would want, in a $1,000 laptop or whatever it is, and it runs like a netbook. And actually, if you think back, remember when netbooks were kind of a thing? There was like an 18-month period there where we were worried about Linux, and Microsoft did the starter edition, and there were netbooks. Remember Nokia back in the day came out with a netbook running Windows, whatever, 7 probably. I don't remember what version it was. And that thing was very expensive. I don't remember the exact cost, but it was probably somewhere along the lines of this. And the idea was, well, it's a premium device. But Yeah, but it runs. It has a 10-inch screen and it runs terribly. I think we've proven enough times that those kinds of devices don't make any sense.
I think the reason they did it, though, was to just try to convince OEMs that Windows 10s shouldn't just be on netbook type devices, right? Like they were trying to make the case like, guys, you could put it on this and we can make sense of it, but nobody ever bit on that, right? So
yeah, and Microsoft obviously did it with the Surface laptop, and we'll never get the number, but I know it's 99 point something percent said nope. Windows 10s is not work, because once you put Windows on it, like real Windows, not Windows, but like real Windows, it's a beautiful laptop.
Don't forget, they claimed, we saw the number, that 60% of people running those third-party notebooks with Windows 10
they also claimed that 330 million people were actively using Microsoft Edge, and I have a slight issue with that number as well.
Actually, that number is okay as long as you say accidentally using Microsoft
accidental Edge.
That could be
that makes sense.
Listen, you could factor in anything you wanted to. They were running it for PDFs or whatever.
Exactly. They had a bunch of PDFs. They opened the PDFs, and Edge opened, and it counted.
It reminded them, right, I want to install Adobe. My mistake. what is this stupid thing, and why?
Actually, no,
by the way,
I'm not with you on that. I think Edge is the best PDF viewer I've ever used.
I completely agree. What I meant by that was, and you're right, especially in the new version. I want to say, because I complain about Edge a lot because, it's terrible. But in the new version, they've done a lot to improve the reading experience for all of the types of things you can read and to make it consistent across all those things. So it's PDFs, EPUBs, actual ebooks that are, digitally protected, web pages, obviously, the reading mode and so forth. They've done a really nice job with that. It's actually really nice. And I agree with you. I use Edge now for PDFs. What I meant was that habits are hard to change, right? So a lot of people install Windows 10 for the first time, and they bring it up on their new computer, and they go get Chrome, and they use Edge for that. And they don't really even think about it. They're so used to getting Edge now, they don't even really think about it. And I think a lot of people do that with Adobe Reader too. And what I would say today in 2018, actually, that doesn't make any sense. You're better off actually using Edge for that, for sure.
I think they might get away with some truth in advertising if they relabeled Edge to Chrome Installer.
I mean, someone had pointed out, I don't remember where I saw this, but that maybe the biggest marketing mistake they made with Edge was to give it the E icon that looks like Internet Explorer, kind of not understanding that people have a negative connotation with that thing. That maybe they should have gone in a different direction. What was the code name, like Spartan or something? Or Project
Spartan would have been a great name. I would have gone with that. You have Cortana and Spartan. Yes. Yeah. And actually, Edge used to have one huge advantage that kept pulling me back, and that is it worked much better with touchscreens than Chrome. Chrome wasn't really optimized for that. The latest versions of Chrome work exceptionally well with touchscreens. So even that advantage is going away.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I've tried. Listen, we talked about this a little bit ahead of time. I keep going back and forth. I'm open, to do, if Edge made sense for me, I would use it. I would love not to install one more thing every time because I bring up lots of computers. I've tried Firefox for months. I tried Firefox, Opera. I've tried, and they all have there's nice things about all of them. But I just keep coming back to the thing. It just works. Like I have to use Chrome.
Yeah. No, same thing. ZipDog. I'm with ZipDog. I hate the fact that Chrome will just occasionally peg my CPU utilization. And I know why now. It's because they've got a bunch of stuff running in the background, including an antivirus software package that I never installed that I can't turn off. Yeah, and that bothers me because on my laptop it spins up the fan and everything gets loud, and it's annoying.
I mean, I don't know if it's Brave. I think it's Brave. Isn't Brave the Google-less version of Chrome? I mean, I suppose you could do that. Opera, I believe, uses the Chrome rendering engine, so you could use that, I guess. I don't know. It's just Mary Jo and I talk about this stuff a lot.
We do.
Familiarity is underrated. People confuse being familiar with something with that thing being intuitive. It's intuitive because you use it so much, you're just used to it. But that's important. It's muscle memory matters. When you go to do something and it's in a different place or it doesn't work, that brings whatever you're doing to a crashing halt. It's a hard thing. And you can kind of fight the system all you want. I think this is the reason why Windows 10s and Windows 10 and ARM are so frustrating. Ultimately, it's just a little too. It's like, oh, look, it's Windows, and you're like, oh no, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's like there's a little too much of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's supposed to look like. Some of the functions work the same, but there's a few things that I think work better than the other one, and so I'm going to use the other one. I'm sorry, that's how it works. Process is efficiency based.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, and one thing I appreciate about what Mary Jo was trying to say about Windows 10 on ARM, or actually even earlier about Notepad and Windows 7 versus Windows 10, whatever. She, not to put words in your mouth, but I think you view this thing as the tool that it is and you use it to get work done. So you kind of get in, you do your work, and you get out. The rest of us are kind of, we got our finger stuck in our belly button. We're like looking at stuff and, oh, look at this. We can do little stupid things. And, I mean, that's not getting work done. That's just screwing around, And I like to be as efficient as possible myself,
Yeah, I think I think it's just hard for people to believe this, especially who listen to this show, but most people don't know what they're using or care.
Yeah.
They don't care what it looks like. They just want it to work.
Yeah, and then the problem for those people, and again, I it's weird because I'm able to keep tying this back to 10S or 10 on ARM or whatever, is that the problem for those folks, and those folks are the majority. They are most of the people. Normal people who should never have to think about this stuff don't know where to turn when something goes wrong. And I think that's the central failing of Windows 10 and ARM, because the weird error messages that you get when you can't do something are like, huh? And it's tough because, like, if you bought an iPad Pro and you attach the keyboard and you're kind of doing your stuff and you're writing stuff in Word and it's working out fine, if there was something in there that didn't work just like Windows did, you would be frustrated by that, but you would also semi-expect it because it's not Windows. The problem with Windows 10 and ARM is it's Windows 10. So when it doesn't behave like Windows 10 does, it's another level of frustration because you got the thing because it is Windows 10.
It's Windows 10, but slower, and you can't install any of your apps. So.
But there's also like a roulette wheel running in the background, and every once in a while it ends up on can't do it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You never know why.
That would be right. That would be the problem, right? Because normals, you see something like suddenly happen, and you're like, "And what did I just do? I don't even know what I did."
What did I do? Yeah, I don't know what I did, but this thing happened, and now it doesn't work. And so you didn't do anything. Yeah, you just tried to use it the way it was intended, or the way Windows has always worked. That was the problem with Windows RT back in the day. You made a thing that looks like Windows. It doesn't run Windows applications. Why did you call that Windows? Why does it look like Windows? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Well, let's move away from bashing the lean version of Windows and the ARM version of Windows, and let's bash some other parts of Windows, specifically Redstone. Now, I've been waiting for this for a while. I really kind of want to play with a few of the features, and we've got news that it's not quite ready for us yet, right?
Right.
Good. This is good.
We have news and no news that indicates that it is not quite ready.
Now, what are the major feature bumps for Redstone?
Feature bumps? What do you mean? Like
what are we going to get? Right.
What are we going to get? So this version, I would argue, I would argue as exactly one feature bump, major feature bump, which is that timeline feature, part of the task management system.
Right.
I actually think it's something that could benefit people if they could find it and understand it. It's not clear to me that a normal person would see this, understand it, and then start using it. But it's a cool feature, and it lets you do task management like you do now with actually Windows key plus tab would be the better one. Except that in addition to seeing what's running now, you can scroll back in time and see what you were running at.
Oh, there we go. See what you were running at a previous time. Now, Mary Jo. There's Paul. You froze up for a second there, Paul.
Yeah, it just replaces task view, right? I mean, isn't that kind of what timeline does?
Well, it's task view, but with a time machine.
To task. It's it's right. Yeah. So if you ever used file history in Windows 10, it kind of works like that. You can you can go back in time. Yeah. I like that. It also works across machines. Yeah. It will work with mobile devices. That's part of a pick I have later. But if you're running Microsoft Edge on a mobile device, those items that you were browsing on that device will also show up in timeline. And so that actually is a piece of the puzzle that's been missing so far when you think about it. The The idea of getting Edge on mobile is that you can continue something from there on the PC. It's an explicit feature of the mobile version of the app. But what if you, that's good for if you're being proactive, but what if you're sitting at your computer later and you're like, well, I was doing this thing on my phone and, how do I, now it's just going to be in there, right? Those things will be there.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think it sounds like a legitimate productivity enhancement. And that is literally the only major new feature in RS4.
Now, Mary Jo, the last time I was a studio host for this show back in November of 2017, you actually had a wonderful article, a write-up on Redstone and on this timeline feature. Why is it taking so long? I mean, it's a fantastic feature, but I thought we would at least have it in the slow ring by now.
Yeah, well, it is now, right? I mean, it's there. The thing that's not here is Microsoft starting to roll out Redstone 4 to mainstream users. So if you're an insider, you see it, right? I mean, you can play with it.
I think what he's alluding to is Microsoft probably announced Timeline at Build a year ago.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So
and along with sets and some other features.
Right.
So
when they did announce that, they warned us and said, you know what? Now, because you guys have been holding us accountable, as you should, for things that we say are going to be in a build, we're going to say maybe it's going to make it and maybe it's not going to make it. And that's what they said about timeline and sets. They said maybe
eventually
it will,
what
maybe
they said about timelines. I mean, that took several months.
Yeah, at first they didn't. Right. Yeah. But so I don't know. It's funny. So many people are bugging me about where is Redstone 4? I'm like, okay, every time somebody does, I say, but why do you want it?
I know. Well, by the way, if you want it, you can get it right now if you want it. It's easy.
Yeah, be an insider. Go get it.
Good. Yeah. It's easy. Anyone can have it.
Right. But everybody who's really clamoring for this, I'm like, please tell me what in this build you really want. I'm curious.
All right, but there's kind of the yin and the yang of this delay is, on the one hand, and to Microsoft's credit, it is better to fix whatever the issue or issues are now before it goes out to the public than to have to issue cumulative updates that address these issues, especially if you might not even be able to get those updates because your system is blue screening, right? So they're at least being responsible enough to address that stuff.
Exactly.
At a time when, who cares? Like you said, who cares? Maybe it was going to come out on April 1 and maybe now it's going to come out on May 1. Who cares? Like, what's the difference in the scheme of things? We released these updates.
How mad would you be? How mad would you be if you got Redstone 4 pushed to your PC and it started just blue screening? Right. I mean, you'd be like, what?
The flip side of that, though, is how is it possible that something like this is happening right now? How is this possible?
I know.
Is the Windows development process so fragile and requires so much human handholding that a problem or some problems of some magnitude have escaped the attention of the people responsible for this thing to the point where they literally had slipped this thing out all the way to we're about to release, oh, shoot, and then they pull it back.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about that because I guess it was 2 years ago when the anniversary update was coming out in mid-2016. They had serious reliability problems. And it was a big effort to make sure that never happens again. And it's not like the TSA security after the fact type stuff where a lot of scrambling, lots of talking, lots of process changing. Those problems that happened are never going to happen again. And then we had 2 versions of Windows where things kind of went really well, actually. And we just talked about the previous update, the Creators Update, is deployed on 90-something% of computers out in the world. That's crazy. It's great.
Yeah.
But deployed on 90% of computers across the world, but how many of those 90% are actually using the unique features from that Creators Update?
Right.
And this is to Mary Jo's point. Yeah, I would like to play with Timeline, but I'm guessing it's going to be that same 90% who have it, and they don't even know it's on the computer.
Don't know it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're touching on the issue that I think is central to the problem with Windows today. Microsoft has telemetry data that shows exactly what people are using. They know exactly what you're using, and they're not talking about it for a reason. There is no uptick on any of that new stuff. None of it. None of it has been successful. It's just like the Windows 10s thing. You can read all the announcements and all the blah, 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 whatever, and X number of devices are available to schools, and they can do this and that and everything. But ultimately, what they don't have is an example of even a single educational institution that is using this system. Not even one. There is not even one. And that's all you need to know. You know, and the problem with this fundamentally is that they've been trying to make every release seem like a big deal. There's a big marketing effort after it. They give it a name. They have all these fun things that they put in, and nobody uses the stuff like I think you're suggesting. And then they do it all over again. And we're just going to keep pretending every single version like this matters.
Right.
And I think that Windows as a legacy productivity tool that's used by a billion plus people who do not care about emojis or 3D anything or mixed reality or whatever the nonsense is, just want to get work done. And they're like Mary Jo, she doesn't even notice. Since the Windows 7 thing she's using right now, is it Windows 7 you're using right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Since that product came out, the thing you're using right now, there have been 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 versions of Windows, and you don't notice a thing. And you are using it to get work done because you don't care. You just want to get in and out. It's a tool. You're not buying a new flashlight every 6 months. You just use it until it's good.
We're kind of where we are with where we are with Office, right? I mean, there is a tiny percentage of people who notice when Microsoft keeps adding features to Office. The majority don't notice.
No.
And in fact, they don't even want more features, right? Like they're like, it's good, just leave it alone.
Have you noticed the way that they actually prompt you now to brag about new features? I'll look at this because I care obviously, and I will say I don't use Word anymore. But when I go back and use Word for whatever purpose, I've noticed that there's it's kind of a neat, I don't know what you call it, spell checking plus grammar checking functionality that they've added at some point. I don't even know when it appeared after I stopped using it. And on the one hand, it's really cool. Like it helps you with your writing. It's not just simple green squiggly underline. They have a little explanation. Hey, you might want to use this, whatever. This is passive tense or whatever it says. And you look at it, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. But on the other hand, it's so ponderous to use because it's like this flyout that you have to click on and it pops out of the side. And you're like, it's cool that they're finding stuff to add in a way. But like you said, like, I don't know. I consider myself a professional writer. I've been writing for 25 years-ish. I probably use 3% of the features of Microsoft Word.
Speaking of that, I mean, maybe that's why if you go to my screen here, I'm still using Office 2007.
That is amazing. And
I use 2010.
Supported?
It's still no, it's not supported anymore. It's very much not supported anymore.
Tell me you use that because it has a toolbar and not a ribbon. Please tell me that's why.
Yeah. I seriously, because you go one version up and it's got the ribbon, and I hate the ribbon.
So
2010. Yep.
I defended the ribbon. And at the time, I gave Microsoft credit for really thinking about how they could handle the problem of command density because of the overloaded nature of the menus and the toolbars. And we've all seen the joke screen of, Word with 27 toolbars, and you have like this tiny little postage stamp for writing. And I do. You have a tool like a word processor that's ancient now, and how could you possibly improve this thing? But the thing is, as we move forward in time and they make these mobile versions of the app, if you look at things like OneNote, which OneNote for Windows 10 now is the default version of OneNote going forward. It's a toolbar, really. It's not a ribbon. And if you look at the mobile Office apps across Windows 10, iOS, and Android, you'll see the same thing. Word, Excel, PowerPoint has this simplified ribbon. Now, these apps obviously only do 40, 50% or whatever it is percent of the full app. But I feel like that functionality is the percentage that most people actually need and use. And though I feel that the toolbar is a little too big, it's because it's touch friendly, so it's a little bit, it's kind of goofy, weird looking big. But I have to agree. I look at that and I think, you know what? That's nice. Because frankly, if I'm taking notes in OneNote, or if I'm writing something in Word, or if I'm working with, I don't work with spreadsheets, so I'd have to imagine what that's like. But if I was doing that, I don't want the stuff around it. I'm trying to focus on the thing I'm doing. And I think this kind of a minimalist UI, because I'm looking at OneNote right now, is vastly preferable to this gigantic
blob,
space hogging ribbon thing.
Command blob.
Yeah.
Command blob. Yes. Yes. I hope that's what it's called internally, is command blob. That would be awesome.
Going back to your comments though on all the features that get rolled out, that we end up not using. It's all the same discussion. I'm thinking, wasn't that how Microsoft sold us on the automatic updates? With the whole Windows 10 press campaign, it was, look, it's not just updates. This is not just patches. You get new features. That was the sell.
I feel like that was more marketing hoo-ha than reality. In other words, there were new features, and have been, and will be. I mean, we're going to learn about those new features when Joe B talks in a few weeks. But like Mary Jo said, I don't think the vast majority of people, or you said, I don't remember, we've all kind of said some version of this. I don't think they notice. I don't think they care. I think a lot of them don't want it. And I think we're reaching a weird point with Windows where it's not this exciting, engaged user base of people who want new stuff. Like I want this thing to be efficient and streamlined and work. And then I want to be done with it, because this is not where I go to have fun, And they have a hard time accepting that.
Yeah,
they still think of themselves as the whole thing.
Yeah, it just goes back. It's for me to the dichotomy between the consumer and business customers. Like the business customers are the ones who don't want. Many times are the ones who are like, I like it the way it is. Can you guys just leave it there? And consumers are more, I think, kind of intrigued, like with things like inking. If you have a system that supports it and things like that. But it always comes back to, how do you make something that works for a billion people?
Well, the way you do it is not to make one thing that works for a billion people. But
I know.
I years and years ago, I sort of offered up this idea that was just too logical, I guess. But there's no reason you can't have two different systems that do the same thing but look different, right? They can run the same apps. You could have the consumer version and the business version. The business version you just described is the one that I would want to run. I don't care about that other stuff. I'm not going to edit photos in Windows. I'm not going to edit videos. I'm not going to make 3D objects. I'm not going to view mixed reality. I'm not watching movies. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I work, and I only want that stuff in front of me. I don't want any of this other nonsense.
Well, this is what the two of you need to carry to build. You have to give them permission. Say, look, I know you promised all this stuff, but no one actually uses it. So maybe just give us the updates.
Wait, I've got it. We need this thing. It's like a leaner version of Windows, and it only takes up like 2 gigabytes of space on the disk.
And you know what?
It just works.
They should probably have some sort of new browser technology that goes with it. That's easier to use.
Run web apps.
Maybe not full functionality, but enough to get you to Gmail.
Yes. I don't know. They're in a tough spot, because the truth is Windows is kind of a maintenance mode thing now, but it is in use by billions of people. Like you can't ignore the audience, but you also can't ignore the fact that none of them care. It's kind of a weird, and not literally none of them. I know we live in the literal age, but the vast majority of people are not the enthusiasts listening to this podcast, and us. They're But even me, I mean, listen, I've been the Windows guy for 20 years or whatever. I'm losing the script here. I don't understand anymore what is happening. I see what's happening. I can explain it to people, but when they ask why, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I can't excuse this anymore. Like I don't quite understand what the point is.
Yeah, and the problem is you can't really, like your immediate thought is, okay, why don't they just have old version of Windows that they just keep like streamlined and don't change it, and a newer version that has all the new bells and whistles for whoever wants that, right? But that doesn't work because of developers, right? Developers want to write an application that works everywhere.
The thing they're not going to do is make it fully modular and allow me to go in and uncheck the stuff I don't want. Remember back, I think it was like Windows 98 probably, or whatever. You had like it was a box that came up. Do you want look, mail, and news? Do you want, whatever the choices were?
Right.
They're not going to do that, and for good reason. I mean, I think for a lot of normal people, that type of choice would be crazy. But I don't know why there can't be like an advanced stream of the setup app where I can just go and say, turn off all the crap. I don't care. The stuff can still be in there, the underlying technology that won't hurt developers, right? The presence of the 3D viewer or the whatever app shouldn't matter to anybody. I mean, honestly, from a UX perspective, the objectionable part of Windows 10, which actually is later in the notes, is the consistency stuff, which is insanity now. The advertising, which is getting out of hand. The crapware, which is inexcusable. And I feel like that could be fixed really easily. And I don't understand the imperative, whether it's economic or otherwise, to not fixing that stuff.
Economic. They're trying to monetize Windows. That's why.
Yeah. Now, but Paul, you brought up the consistency. What do you mean when you say there's a consistency problem with Windows?
So you're running Windows 10 right now?
I am.
Here's a cute, subtle thing for you to examine side by side. If you bring up the Groove Music app and you bring up settings, assuming you're in RS5, are you in RS4? Sorry. Are you running RS4?
I am. I've got Groove up.
Okay. And yeah, you have to wait till it, like everyone else, you've never run it. That's fine. Yeah. So bring up the settings up. Well, you're running in dark mode. Is the whole system in dark mode?
Yeah.
Then that's fine. Leave that open so you can compare. Leave no, sorry, go back to the top, hit the hamburger. There you go. Okay, now open the settings application, not settings for the app, it's settings.
All right.
And then go into one of the system or whatever. And then don't do them side by side because you can't see the two things. You can't see the full thing on Groove, unfortunately. So if you compare the sidebar, so you must be running RS3. So in RS4, they've added that acrylic see-through effect to settings. Okay, that's fine. That does look the same, and you have to think that if you look at the icons in the list, they all look the same. It's fine.
Well, that's why I went with dark, because I was tired of my Windows looking weird.
Yeah. So the differences here are, there's a couple of differences. One is the search box in both of those things is completely different, and it is
true. Yeah.
The heading sizes, heading 1, heading 2, and the text are different sizes and colors. So if you look at display versus my music, songs versus select and rearrange displays, you'll see those are different sizes. And then they have different, you don't see it there, but over on the right.
I could see it. I could totally see it.
So it's just inconsistent, right? And these are two modern apps, obviously developed by different teams, whatever. But that's just one example. It's just, there are a million of these things. That navigation bar on the left, someone on Twitter, I think, had posted a photo of 12 different versions of that UI, all of which look exactly different. Actually, bring up the People app is another beautiful
that's another one that's never been opened.
It's unbelievably terrible. So, and then get through this. So this app is beautiful because it has a colored title bar, despite the fact that you might have turned that color off in settings. It doesn't matter. It's always on.
Wow.
The search box is outside of the hamburger menu. And if you open that hamburger, and this one, I don't know if it does the see-through or whatever, but it's, again, inconsistent. Look at the hamburger icon at the top is different looking.
Yeah, and it's smaller
than the hamburger and the other ones. It's these are the apps in Windows 10, folks.
Yeah, they add up.
These things. Yeah, there is. This system should sell itself. Microsoft should be able to hold these things up as a shining example of how you make apps correctly for Windows and why you should use this stuff because it's so beautiful. And instead, it's just an unbelievable example of inconsistency across the board. Every one of these things is completely different.
Now, Paul, I will say, I didn't notice that before, but now I can never.
Now you'll never be able to unsee it.
I know. That's my gift. I've ruined your life.
Thank you.
Every relationship I've ever had with anyone has ended in the same disaster.
Mary Jo, does that bother you?
Nope, I never would notice it, and in fact, I never will.
even though you now know to look for it.
No.
Well, okay, but by the way, I'm sure that's true. I'm not casting doubt on that. But I think this speaks to what is an underlying quality issue in Windows, and I think it speaks to a culture at Microsoft that is something we've talked about in the past, which is about shipping something new, not finishing the job on the thing you've already shipped. And finishing the job takes many forms. It's a fine-tuning, quality control, consistency in this case, reliability, whatever. This team that is responsible for all this garbage just shipped and then it didn't ship a new version of Windows. So these kinds of problems can take many forms, and some of them a little. I mean, granted, these little consistency things in the scheme of things. We're not talking about solving cancer or whatever, but I think it speaks to the larger problem with Windows, which is that there is not a guiding hand of any kind insisting on any level of quality at all. And they're just kind of cruising along. And every 6 months, they're churning out more crap. And the more crap you churn out, the more inconsistencies you introduce. the less we think that you actually give it, that you care about this product at all.
You know what I wonder if this is going to change somewhat now because of the reorg and Joe Belfiore basically owning consumer Windows, and he is somebody who has worked on things around design and UX for a lot of his career at Microsoft. So I don't know. I'm not just going to say one person is going to be the magic cure for this, but maybe having somebody who's more attuned to design in a higher level position there will make a difference.
Yeah, I don't know whether to attribute that to Joe or I sort of think sometimes now that Azure is, they're not controlling the experience part obviously, but now that Azure is in charge of the Windows core, the kernel and so forth.
The engineering,
I kind of wonder if there isn't going to be a call for just higher quality across the board. Like we have standards and you have to meet those standards and maybe that needs to extend to UX. I don't know. I think of this as punting it forward for some reason, but we keep talking about build and we'll see what they say at build. And for every time we say that, I think to myself, we're not.
We're not what? I want to hear the rest.
I can't be complete. I can't be complete without that. No,
I'm guessing he's going to say we're probably not going to hear all the things we're expecting.
Yeah, I don't know what keeps happening there, but yeah, we're not gonna get all of the answers that we want, right? There's going to be a show, and now we know it's a bigger show than we thought it was going to be. It's going to be 2 hours long, and that show is going to be everything's fine. I don't know what you people are freaking out about, and fine, I get it. I understand the need for that, but it's happening. Oh boy. Am I frozen again?
No, but we can hear you. So.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Blame your cats. That's what I do.
Yeah, no, my cats are nowhere to be seen today for some reason, but yeah, no, I'm with you. We can keep looking forward to the next thing, but we're not going to get the answers.
I'm with you on this one. We've got people in the chat room who are saying, what's the big deal? But here's the thing for me. At minimum, this is a branding thing. Their marketing team should be all over this because if it ships with Windows, if it comes in the update, if it's if it's the experience before you've installed any apps, there's absolutely no reason why everything shouldn't work the same as far as the settings and the look goes.
They need a consistency czar. They need I'm sure they have these processes, right? You can't release an app in Windows unless they meet some bar of some kind. There's probably several bars. One of them needs to be, we have this kind of UX in other apps. Does it look and work the same? It doesn't? Then you can take this back until it does.
Right.
We can debate which one of them makes more sense than the other or whatever, but I think that needs to be part of the deal. Like in the past, I've kind of complained about, the need for, I think I called it a reliability initiative, right? Because of the reliability issues that they had. Consistency to me is UX consistency is, again, maybe not as dramatic of an issue, but it's part of the same thing. This thing, Windows, should be high quality. It should be something respected, not something that we can easily mock because it's a disaster. And you just get the feeling that nobody cares. The fact that they just got rid of the guy who runs Windows, by the way, and scattered this thing to the winds does not instill confidence in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you figure they're going to have a lot of those, I'm going to kill all the projects of my predecessor going on.
Oh, that's already happened, by the way. That's already started to happen. Yeah. Yep.
The purge has begun.
Yeah.
Well, that's happy.
I know. That's my world. Welcome to my world. That's why I need an exorcism. Okay, that's what I mean.
Let's step back from the Windows 10 world for a while and go to something that I really actually enjoy and I really do get happy about, and that's the server world. And Mary Jo, you've got some server news that I actually find exciting.
Right. So server is proceeding along its merry Redstone 5 path. They're simultaneously working on what they call the long-term servicing channel version, which is Windows Server 2019, and the semi-annual channel version, which is, we think, called Windows Server 1809, because it'll be out this fall. They've been adding features bit by bit to this week. I guess it was yesterday. They came out with a new test build of this for both the long-term servicing channel and the semi-annual channel. It's build number 17650. And there's some new features in here. There's some new clustering features and a bit more information about what they're doing around storage replica with this new version. There's actually going to be a standard version and not just data center version of that technology. But I just found this right before the show. A lot of people have been wondering about, will Windows Server 2019 support remote desktop? Because that role has been missing in previous test builds of Windows Server, Redstone 5. And I don't know when they amended the blog post, but the blog post has been updated from yesterday that says, hey, by the way, remote desktop session host is in this build. So if you're someone who wanted to start testing how remote desktop is going to work with the next version of Server, this is actually in there now. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about Server. You know, they're not adding ink and 3D and all that stuff. It's not all the glamorous stuff.
Can I run Server on the client?
Maybe that's what we need.
Maybe we have the solution. By the way, my cat heard that she wasn't here, and so she just showed up.
Now she is. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard you missed me. I'm back.
I'm back to pull a plug out of your computer.
You know what Server needs? Server needs a creator's update. I think that would make it so much better.
I don't know, maybe, remember that was a thing back in, I don't know, 2000 timeframe or maybe after 2003, running Server as a workstation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the deal. I just want to run Windows applications. There's no store in Server, is there? Is there like a Microsoft store in the Server product?
I don't think so.
Well, sign me up then, because that sounds great.
Maybe you should be running Windows 10 Pro Workstation. Maybe that's what you should be running.
That's what I've got on this machine.
I guarantee you that thing still comes with Mickey Mouse's stupid game and Candy Crush, whatever it's called. And
probably does.
I'm sure it does. Sure.
No, actually, the biggest problem was, so this is the Windows 10 Pro Workstation version. It really wants you to run virtualized apps. It really, really does. And it has a virtualized network adapter, which messes up wireless. It always favors the Ethernet instead of the wireless. So you have to disable it. But when you disable it, it creates another instance of itself. And
that's amazing.
And you can't delete the new instances. So I had 40 instances of this new virtual Ethernet adapter.
Oh, no.
So I finally had to go into the command line and actually turn off all of the hypervisor and then delete all the adapters and then turn the hypervisor back on. So
as Jeffrey Snover would tell you, there's a PowerShell script for that. I'm positive.
There is. There actually is. But that was annoying. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But maybe Server. Maybe.
Yeah.
Server. Jeez, that would be something. How does Server run on my Surface laptop? Would that work out okay?
Something worth pointing out, though, because I get this question a lot about the Server test builds and kind of what the versions are of Server. Most people who run Windows Server, you don't want the semi-annual channel version. Yeah. You want to get Windows Server 2019 when that comes out and not 1809 because there are different roles that you can and can't support on those two versions. And, you want the stable one to run your apps that have to be up all the time. You don't want the feature update one.
Something one of you had said earlier reminded me of that notion of like the long-term servicing branch or whatever we're calling it this year. And that in some ways, channel, sorry, is the type of thing I think we're talking about for the client, right? I want to be on the long-term servicing channel for Windows 10. I just want to, run this thing. I'll get the updates. Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, maybe I should look into this.
Yeah, you can, but you won't get some things like for one, Microsoft doesn't support you on Surface machines if you run the long-term servicing channel of Windows 10 client.
Makes sense.
So, and you won't get certain updates that you might actually want because it's meant to be a lockdown version for things. It's meant to be for like machine hardened kind of stuff that, like medical equipment that should never get a monthly update,
Look, I don't mind
it's not really the one you
monthly
want,
stuff.
but
Yeah.
I mean, people do it. I talked to a number of IT pros who say, I'm running the long-term servicing channel. I don't care if I don't get any of that stuff.
Wow.
That's it.
I like the acrylic Fluent design system stuff. I actually like. It is inconsistently applied. Of course it is. In every version of Windows 10 now for the past 3 versions, they've added a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and they're kind of filling it out as they go, I guess. But I do like it. I mean, I'm not against the look and feel. I kind of like that this latest version doesn't have any major changes. As someone who writes a book about Windows 10, that was a welcome surprise because it's really tedious to cover all these small changes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, I really just want the security patches. That's right. That's what I'm waiting for. That's the only thing I care about because, as we've already discussed, I don't use any of the features that they're packing into the new updates.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they could
I'm
just
also
give me
delighted.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just saying if they could give me the security patches without making it completely annoying for me to get my update, then so much the better.
Yeah, I noticed. I think it was on Surface Laptop that 2 of those kind of crapware apps that I had uninstalled quite some time ago now had just updated. So like they're back on the computer.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh boy.
Well, that's the other thing about the big updates. I really like it when they reset preferences that I've set. Like the big one for me on every laptop I have is the default is the reverse scrolling. I don't reverse scroll. I prefer the regular one. So I have to go back into the mouse app every single time, turn off the Zoom Perfect, go back to the other version, and then turn off reverse scrolling. And I'm thinking, shouldn't that just be a read? You just read what my settings are and just adopt them. Why are you overriding it every single time?
Well, right. So they've gotten better about that over time because it used to be a lot more settings that reset with each version. But I think that, the thing that gets obscured by Microsoft calling this a feature update is that you are, in fact, installing a major new version of Windows when you get those updates. Exactly. And the behavior there is so different because you're literally installing a new version of Windows. And, they've slipstreamed it so it kind of hides that that's what's happening. And the process is actually very reliable compared to how it used to be several years ago. But yeah, I mean, that's, by the way, another example of consistency and stuff that falls through the cracks because there's no one steering the ship.
Yeah. Oh, Paul, earlier you were talking about how maybe the E was for education and one of the feature sets would be the ability to remotely administer.
Mary Jo came up with that one, but yes, that was a
pure guess.
We talked ourselves into it as we talked kind of thing. But yeah, I think so.
But one of the key features that you spoke of, and that's the ability to remotely manage and fix machines that have gone bad, is actually being rolled out for the rest of us with Lenovo. Mary Jo, you talked about how Lenovo they're testing AutoPilot right now. This is one of the things that the enterprise has been looking for. We don't want to be re-imaging our machines all the time, and if we had a big red button to reset, I think every single one of us would use it.
Yeah. I mean, what if you say you have a big enterprise and you want to set up the machines that everybody gets with certain security policies and certain company policies. You want to do it from the cloud. You just want to, like you said, hit a button and have it all just be there when they turn on their machines. It's actually starting to happen. Windows AutoPilot, which we heard about, I think at Ignite.
This is the thing that happens at the factory, right? In other words, the PC makers can build this into it's something they can apply as part of the build process for a new computer, and it just goes out the door. That's actually pretty amazing.
I know. So Lenovo is already testing this with a few select customers, and they said it should be rolling out later this year to everyone who wants it. And now HP has said they also will have it this year, and Dell even sooner. I think Dell's saying in the
Dell
coming
said
weeks.
They would be the first, to actually do it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's happening, guys. Finally, because I remember we heard about this around last Ignite, and then I'm like, okay, and the word then was everybody will be doing this starting like in January 2018 or something, or early 2018, and then time was ticking by, and I'm like, so is anybody doing Windows AutoPilot? I mean, Microsoft has it for Surface. They were the very first ones to roll it out, but it's nice to see other OEMs starting to support that now too.
I just like the idea as an administrator of being able to toggle the process. It ties back into my Azure Active Directory, and it knows exactly what permissions and apps the device should have, and it resets.
You don't have to pave it over when you get it. This can just happen right out the door. This saves so much time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a little time either. I mean, when you're talking about an enterprise with literally
especially the way the world is today, because you're not everyone's walking into the same building, going to the same office, and working in the same place, right?
Yeah.
So in the old days, like today, I mean, you would order a machine for a new employee who might be working in Connecticut or something, and you might send it to you first so you could pave it over, spend all that time making sure it's configured correctly, then pop it back in the box, put it in the mail, and send it to them. And time goes by, and all that costs a lot of money too. So now that employee comes on board, you order the thing for him, it goes directly from the PC maker to Connecticut and bypasses you completely, and now it's all configured exactly the same way. So, I mean, that's the ultimate zero touch in a way when you think about it. It's literal zero touch.
Yeah. Speaking of zero touch, something that I will refuse to touch is Windows S mode via the store, which I believe you wrote an article about. So how is this supposed to work? And more importantly...
So actually, Mehdi wrote this, but go ahead. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Well, how does it work, and how do they expect me to actually think I want this?
Well, there's a big question about how these things will go out in the world. When the RS4 final build started appearing and then was re-released, I went and looked at the ISO because I wanted to see what choices it presented. What I thought it was going to say was, remember that purple dialogue you had up earlier that said lean on it? If you look at that for RS4, it just doesn't have S in there at all. So RS3 says Windows 10 S, Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, and then a couple of N editions and maybe Enterprise. I don't remember the exact list. RS4 just doesn't have S in there at all. And what I expected to see was Windows 10 Home in S mode, Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro in S mode, Windows 10 Pro, that kind of thing. And that's not there. And I kind of expected that would be the case. It could still be the case. They might change it, and they haven't officially released the final ISO, so you never know. But that part is still a mystery. But if you get a PC from a PC maker where you have S mode, whatever version of Windows you have, you'll be able to go into the store and switch that to the full version of Windows, whatever it might be, Home or Pro. And the way that works is exactly the same way it works in Windows 10S today, where you can switch to Pro. It brings up a page in the store app. And it's always been free. They were supposedly going to charge for that over time, but it was always free. And now the new switch from out of S mode page, as advertised, is also free. I had actually if you have the Windows 10 Field Guide, this has actually been in the book since late March. I actually document this. Paul,
they look so happy in S mode.
Those are exactly the type of people that could never run S mode. Look at those guys. They look like engineers. They have to. Their work is so dangerous. They wear goggles. But yeah, as far as the process, it works exactly the same way. There's a lot of questions. Like I said, I have other questions around such things as, you buy a new Surface laptop in May 2018, and it comes with Windows 10 Pro in S mode, let's say. If you, sorry, my cat is, I don't have a rat problem. That's my cat. It's weird how distracting this animal can be. Anyway, if you switch, I wanted to say upgrade, but if you switch out of S mode, you go to full Pro, and then you use it for a couple of months, and then you want to blow it away and reset the computer, will it go back to that factory S mode install? I think it will. And that's actually a big difference between the way that Windows 10S worked, because if you switched out of 10S, you actually would reset back to Pro. So we'll see. These are the things that I obsess over, so I will keep playing with that and looking at it as it changes. But as of right now, switching out of S mode works exactly the same way it did before. I think switching back is probably going to be a little bit different, meaning that it will be better and easier. But it's still not. It's not a two-way street. You can't just switch back and forth. You have to reset the computer.
Yeah. Yep. And if I have to do that, I don't have a big enough incentive to actually try S mode.
I don't. Well, but this gets into that conversation I had earlier. We make these weird decisions because you could say something like, "Well, I could probably get by with this thing." Mary Jo runs a web browser in OneNote and not OneNote, Notepad. Whatever it might be. Yep. And yeah, okay, but I guess my thing is, but why would anyone want to do that? Right. Because, the ultimate argument here is there's a sane thing you can do. If you really do care about the reliability, the ongoing performance of your computer, whatever it might be, You can switch a mode in Pro right now where it'll put up a little dialog to block you every time you try to install something off the internet, and you can bypass it. And I think that's enough, right? I would prefer on a Surface laptop or any other computer to install Chrome because I use it. I'm looking at the apps I use. Install Adobe. Well, Photoshop's actually a store app, so there's really not that many apps. So I have some web apps I use, whatever. Install that stuff and then throw that switch on, right? I'm going to bypass it every time I hit it. But the point is it makes me think about it. And I think that extra prompting, which is a little bit like a UAC prompt in a way, it's just a little, it's like the third brake light in a car. It's a little bit of extra visual, hello,
It puts a pause in your process. And sometimes that's all you need to say, oh, yeah, that's right. Do I want to do this?
Do I really need this thing?
Yeah.
But the problem with S mode is that you get a prompt, but then you can't bypass it. Well, I mean, you can switch out of it, but I like the idea of I'm going to block Win32 apps by default, but I can okay their install. I think that's the sane approach because you will need it. You'll need it eventually for that inkjet printer you use, the scanner, or the Microsoft mouse, which requires a Win32 app, or whatever it might be. You might have that. Everyone has the one application they want to use that's not in the store because there are no apps in the store. Basically, there aren't many. And maybe that changes over time. But in the meantime, just treat us like adults. Let us make the choice.
That's actually very analogous to my Edge experience, which is I was okay with a lot of the little annoyances until I hit one or two game stoppers. And those were normally at the end of the chain where I had sort of figured out how to make everything work properly. And then it was, oh, well, if that doesn't work, I can't use it.
I'm never going to get a good answer to this question because I don't think there is one. But because I wonder about this for myself too. Like, do you ever wonder, like, why do you even bother? Like, in other words, for some reason you feel the need to try Edge. You're going to put up with its stupidity for some amount of time, and then it reaches some threshold where you finally say, like, I can't do this anymore. But why do we go through that beginning? Why do we even go through that? We have something that works. Like, what's broken in us, that causes us to want to even try to do this stuff? I don't know. I wonder about this. Like, it really doesn't make any sense. You have something that works. Good. Let me throw a wrench right in the middle of the tires. It's spinning, and I'll try this other thing. Let's see how that works instead. Why?
No, I think you hit it early on. It's they're smarting from the loss of the mobile platform. They really want.
No, I mean us as users. Like, why do we do it? What makes us? Why would you? It's like the joke about jumping out of a perfectly usable airplane. I mean, like, why? Why? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's because you're not the customer for this. It's for people who don't even know they're using 10S, and they're going to just be like, okay.
Okay, but as an advocate for those people, I actually feel worse for them because at least we're smart enough to know what we can do next. Putting this kind of a system in front of someone who doesn't know any better is irresponsible. Even if 90% of what they could do would be fine, because like I said, eventually they are going to run into that thing. I think Windows 10S, it's some single digit percentage, whatever it is. Windows 10 on ARM, it's a double digit percentage. It's worse.
I think you just came up with the show title, Paul. It's going to be Windows S. It's not you, it's us.
Yeah, it's not you, it's S. Yeah.
No, but I think you're right. Look, I am very happy. Going back to Windows 7 on my desktop every once in a while, I actually like Windows 10 a lot more than I think sometimes I admit.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And all you need to, by the way, that's a great example. You just use Windows 10 and you'll feel great about Windows 10.
Yeah.
Use Windows 7.
Yeah, exactly. And Windows 7 was perfect for me. And when they were trying to push me to 8, I didn't want to go to 8. When they were trying to push me to 10, I didn't want to go to 10. But it is at the point now where I'm actually quite happy. Aside from the fact that you've now pointed out something that is going to just nag on my OCD. Thank you so very much, Paul, by the way.
I do this. I do this to my wife all the time. Like in our house, we'll be sitting in a room and I'll say, "Hey, see that light switch over in the wall? See like where it is in the wall? Now look at that one over there.
Oh,
it's
no.
a different height."
Why would you do
She's
that?
like, "What is wrong? What are you doing?"
That's just mean.
Or we have a sunroom that my dad built, and it's not symmetrical. And so you sit in it and you look up at the point and you're like, why is it like 1.5 feet over? Why wouldn't, like, why wouldn't it be, you built this? Like, what, like, why wouldn't you do it right?
All right, let's get away from OCD and go into some speculations about earnings. Now, earnings the last couple of days have been coming out for a couple of companies, and it's been mostly disappointing on the street. We had suppliers for Apple who reported less than expected incomes, and so it got a lot of analysts thinking, okay, so the iPhone's not selling as well as it should be. Amazon disappointed because they're going to be doing a bit more CapEx than expected. Microsoft is tomorrow. What do we expect?
I think you're going to hear how great the cloud is yet again, how everything is going gangbusters with commercial cloud. I've been looking at some of the earnings previews today coming out, and it was interesting. I saw one focus on video games. I'm like, wait a minute. Like Wall Street usually is like, oh, Xbox, we don't care, But now that Microsoft started talking about gaming and the cloud, the magic word cloud, I think Wall Street is like, oh, wait, cloud? Did they say cloud?
Yeah.
So I think there could be some extra talk and extra focus maybe on what's going on with gaming at Microsoft, which would be interesting to hear on earnings for a change. They're not going to change how they report earnings, even though they had that reorg a couple weeks ago. So you're still going to see the same categories, more personal computing and all that. So we'll probably be able to look at, how the Surface business did in the latest quarter and if it did well or kind of again.
I'm not expecting much there, to be honest.
Me neither.
Hardware.
Yeah.
No.
I think Dynamics,
because you mentioned this.
Dynamics has made them a chunk of money. I'm betting on that.
Dynamics is, it's coming along, but there's still a lot of confusion around Dynamics too. So I don't know.
Every time someone says Dynamics, I have to do a little mental reset and think, what is that again? It's CRM, right?
Right.
CRM. Yeah, okay.
CRM ERP.
Because I don't care about CRM, so then my brain shuts off.
You don't care about CRM.
Sorry.
Okay. Right.
You mentioned that they're not going to change their accounting for this quarter, and I think I recall them saying that at the time. Do you expect them with the changeover of the fiscal year on July 1 for that to be maybe a change in the business unit structure? Do you think they're going to change that at some point?
Yeah, I wonder. That's a really good question. If they're going to keep breaking out Windows as a separate thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, Windows is going to be even harder to account for. I mean, of course, they're going to be able to give us numbers from time to time, active, devices, whatever. But by splitting Windows between two business units, essentially, they have created another commercial cloud, something that is not real, but is a thing. That we can sort of talk about as a thing. And I wonder how they handle that.
Yeah, I think that the thing that they report though are like, how the growth was with OEMs. And I think that's still in one place where they could pull that number out. The splitting of the org was more like engineering goes over under Jason Zander in the cloud and enterprise.
Yeah, right. But I mean, there's a cost to all of these businesses, right? There's like a cost to keeping the Bing service up and running. That kind of gets spread out because part of that is Cortana and part of it is, and I wonder if Windows doesn't get, I don't know how they do it. I don't, it's very confusing.
I know that'll be interesting. And the other interesting thing is when and if they will talk about layoffs, because a lot of people have been speculating that because of that reorg and people moving around and kind of consolidation of groups, there could be layoffs. And we haven't heard that. We haven't heard anything concrete right now about that happening. But usually around the time of their partner conference, which is July, and the start of the new fiscal year, July 1.
That's got to be the time frame, right? Beginning of fiscal year.
I would think
they can kind of toss it into the end of the last fiscal year and let that happen. The cost of it. Actually, is that how they do it? I'm not sure if that's how they do it. Maybe they spread it out
sometimes
over the next fiscal year.
their fourth. Yeah, sometimes around that time when they report. Yeah. It could be that.
They take a one-time hit or whatever. And
But
that's the quarter that no one's paying attention.
Well,
summer, people on vacation.
The dog days of summer is when everything bad happens.
Dump everything in there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't expect Surface to do well, frankly. I mean, this is something they've been sitting on this stuff for a while. I feel like I've just told the story a million times. I just need to update that. Terry Myerson, it was interesting that he mentioned closing in on 700 million active devices on Windows 10. The last figure they gave, I believe, was 600. So it's reasonable to assume they might announce an actual 700 million figure at some point. Possibly build, possibly earnings. I mean, there's no way that Xbox is doing well. Comparatively speaking, there's nothing going on there per se, but that's normal. It's kind of seasonal.
Well, Paul,
but a lot of games and game franchises and partnerships with gaming companies. I don't know if that'll.
They don't have any of that, Mary Jo. That's the problem. Stuff doesn't
don't they
exist.
now? Really?
Not really. I mean, they this kind of I'm surprised this wasn't reported on, and I only looked at it in passing, but somewhere I saw this figure that Microsoft has handed out $7 million to Minecraft developers is the wrong term, but
I saw this story somewhere too. Yeah, I saw this too somewhere.
All right, so I don't understand exactly what that is. It's not the equivalent of like App Store percentage payments or whatever, although it kind of is, right? Maybe just within that one game. 7 million is not necessarily a big number.
No, it's not.
Although it's,
I think it was people who are making toys and things that build on the Minecraft franchise. Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah, this is more platform development. So that they want it to be more than just a game. They're trying to make it an ecosystem that they can build upon. Yeah. So I
don't have this in the notes, but they're doing some summer camp stuff at the Microsoft stores over the summer. And one of the curriculums they have for kids is learning how to program using Minecraft and the development tools that are built into Minecraft, which is cool. I think that's
very
cool.
smart. It's very smart.
Yeah, and I think Minecraft is super successful, but I kind of question the value of announcing $7 million of anything because it just doesn't make it seem like a big thing.
It would have been better if they didn't tie a number to it. They could have just said, "Look, we're supporting a bunch of developers / program enhancers who are going to go out and build us a world around Minecraft."
They're 30% better than last year, whatever the number is. I don't know. Something.
Yeah.
Well, what about the Xbox? I know they had an update in April. What did we get with that?
Yeah, that just came out this week. Big thing there is variable refresh rate, support for FreeSync monitors, 2560 by 1440, like 1440p displays, which oddly enough is what I use here on the Xbox. I've seen absolutely zero change there, but it's kind of, whatever, it's fine.
Do you have an HDR screen?
I do not.
You do not?
Yeah, I wish I did, yeah.
I have not been able to play in HDR yet, except at E3. And
I've only done it at Microsoft events. It's awesome. Yeah. I talked to, Samsung would have sold people the displays they had at some kind of a discount, which is great. It's just that those displays are normally $2,000. And what I'm looking for is like a 28-inch something for, $500 maybe.
And $300 to $500 monitor. That's
I'm not looking. I agree that $1,500 is a great savings for this particular display, but I don't have that kind of money just sitting around doing nothing. So sorry.
All I know is that if Mary Jo could play Call of Duty in 4K and HDR, then she would become a gamer.
My life would be guaranteed. Changed.
I do feel like Mary Jo could answer the Call of Duty. So anyway, so that's actually rolling out right now. So the chances are good you could be getting it today, tomorrow, sometime in the next few days. It's happening. And so I'm on the Insider program. So it was weird. I was looking through the list and I was like, I thought we already had all this stuff. And we did because, you got Insider program, they probably got it in February or March or whatever. But anyway, so they do regular updates on Xbox and that's out now. The other one is that...
Can I ask an Xbox question before you go on?
Please. Please do.
So what's the Redstone 4 version of Xbox called? Is it called 1805?
Yeah, I think it is actually. I don't have
so it should be out in May, right? Or June?
They're starting to roll it. Yeah, no. So where I just lost it. There's some of the updates in this update are related to RS4 stuff. Like Chrome update, like not Chrome, Microsoft Edge updates.
Fluent.
It's a lot of mixing and mashing here. So Microsoft Edge is updated with better look and feel enhancements to history and favorites, tab muting, right, read aloud, autofill, and then I guess this wasn't there before, but also download and upload capabilities. cloud services. So that's good.
I was just curious because even though it's quote one Windows, all these things update at different times, right? So PCs get it at one time, and then the HoloLens will get it at a different time, right?
Yep. Yeah, and not to beat this to death, but if Microsoft could somehow, and they probably won't now, why bother? But if they could somehow separate the consumer and business versions of Windows on PCs, those things could be on their own schedules. Businesses would want those things updated far less frequently. Consumers could probably stand to do what they're doing now. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
The other big news is I feel like I've been milking this for some time, and I don't mean to, but in the wake of Terry Myerson getting booted out of Microsoft, I talked to a ton of people at Microsoft for hours and hours and hours. And I learned lots of things. And some of it's kind of interesting because you have this conversation where people kind of assume that I just know about stuff. So they'll say, well, as you know, Microsoft's working on this new Xbox console. But anyway, and then they keep going. I'm like, what was that? So one of the conversations I had was that Microsoft is working on a sequel to the Xbox One. In other words, a new console generation, not an Xbox One something else, but another Xbox. And I said to that person, who's a very long-time trusted source, that I sort of assumed that Microsoft would be moving toward this cloud-based delivery of games, and that would be the future, that they would not be making consoles, because Microsoft's really never made money with consoles. They've never won any console generation. The way that Microsoft could win, so to speak, in the video game world would be if we move past consoles, because then they do a really good job with that other stuff, specifically the cloud and that kind of thing. And his reaction to that was kind of interesting, because I think it sounds logical enough. And he was, the reaction was kind of like, what do you, he's like, no, that's not, like, they're not doing that. like, not that they're not doing it, but that's not happening anytime soon as the platform. Like there has to be another generation, basically is what it came down to. There is, of course, cloud-based delivery of games to the Xbox. And Microsoft, I think, has a great advantage that they can create games that play on both Xbox and Windows, that they can interoperate together, which is really cool. You can even play multiplayer games together in certain games and so forth. But it's not the heterogeneous hardware, like the hardware you have doesn't matter. So that was all I had heard about it. And I didn't write about it. I tweeted about it, a couple weeks ago. But then sometime in the past week, Brad pinged me in the morning and he says, hey, I just heard from one of my sources that Microsoft's working on a next generation Xbox console. So I asked around and I found out about, I verified it with somebody else. So I'm going to write about it. I said, that's great. I said, I can verify it too. And I told him what I just told you guys. And so Brad wrote up the story about the new Xbox. So he had heard a little bit more about it, but the basic gist here is that it's not happening like this November or anything. This is still years away. And they're looking at, I guess, rejiggering the schedule, although I actually don't think that's completely accurate. If you think about previous generation consoles, it was a 5 to 7 or 8 year life cycle for these things. Like the Xbox 360 was in the market for a really long time. The Xbox One, every couple of years, they've kind of revved it. And I think that when he's talking, what Brad was talking about was a 3-year cycle. I think he actually meant 3 years within the life cycle, that the first gen device for the next gen would be 3 years, and then 3 years, and then maybe 3 years after that. Like this is not that they're going to go yet another new thing after 3 years. But I think he said that, backwards and forwards compatible, of course, they're not going to screw that up. That's one of the big strengths of the Xbox ecosystem. And I don't remember if, I don't want to say, I don't know if this is public. So anyway, that's the basic gist of it. Well, I was going to say something about the hardware platform. I don't know if that was part of his story, but anyway, it will be backwards and forwards compatible.
We don't actually have an Xbox in the Vatican. So while you're at Build, if you want to mention that to their Xbox department.
You know what? I bet if I did mention that to someone from the Xbox team that they would fix that problem.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
And thus assure themselves of sainthood.
We have the very first 3D printer in the Vatican.
Nice.
And that's it's in my studio. It's a Prusa i3. So,
nice.
Well, why not?
Yep, I like it.
I like it a lot. Now, I always have questions when we get to this part of the show, because we want to do listener Q&A, but I never know where the Q&A comes from.
I know. We haven't done it in so long.
It comes from the cloud.
It comes from the cloud. Yeah, we usually do it when we don't have a lot of items, and we solicit questions before the show starts.
Yeah, we didn't need it. This was actually a nice.
I don't think we needed it.
This show was actually longer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, that's because
thank God I pontificate so much.
Thank goodness there was a lot to rant about.
I come on, I did pretty good on the. I was really worried the arm thing was.
I didn't ring the gong.
I warned Mary Jo in advance. I said, she said, "You've chilled again, haven't you?" No, I said, it was like I was nervous that it was going to get. Yeah, it was going to get bad.
It was ready to go.
We have an authentic gong. I brought it back from Tibet, and it's sitting in the producer's office right now. So Leo could always.
That thing behind you should be a gong. You should be able to go behind the desk there and just like whack that thing.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into the tips and picks of the week. This one says Xbox, so I'm pretty sure it's Mary Jo, right?
It is. Yeah.
Close. So Xbox Game Pass is, I think, the hidden gem of the Xbox ecosystem right now. It's $10 a month. It's over 100 games. It's a great deal. And one of the really cool things that they've done over time is to make sure that all of the brand new Microsoft Studio games are in the system on day one of release. Nice. And so that's happening next month with State of Decay 2. And I should look at my notes before I say this, make sure this is correct. But I believe that with that game, let me just make sure it's that game. I don't want to say this. Anyway, every month they add new games to the subscription. Next month, two of the big ones are State of Decay 2 and Laser League. Yeah, and so State of Decay 2 is an Xbox Play Anywhere title, meaning you can play it on Xbox One or Windows 10 PCs. This game is going to feature cross-platform co-op multiplayer. So a team of 4 people that can be any mix of on Xbox One or Windows 10 PCs can play multiplayer together on a team. I love that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. And then Homefront: The Revolution, which is the second Homefront game. That's actually a game I really want to play, so that's really neat. But every month, again, great new games. There's a Pro Evolution Soccer 2018 is an example of a game. This is something else that happens in this system that I think isn't well understood. This will be available through Xbox Game Pass from May 1 through August 31st. So after that time, you'll have to buy it if you want to keep playing it. So if you're into this kind of a game, what you want to do is obviously spend the next 4 months playing it for free, or for the cost of your subscription. Anyway, it's a great deal. Just kind of remember that happens because every month they add new games, and this month is particularly good. And then just as a sort of related aside, right now, if you buy an Xbox One X or S from any major retailer, basically, I believe this is U.S. plus Puerto Rico plus Canada. I'm not sure if it's international, but you will get a copy of Madden NFL 18 for free. It makes sense that wouldn't be in Europe, I guess. Let's see. And then app picks, 2 app picks I wanted to mention. We talked about Google Chrome earlier. One of my issues with Google Chrome is just the look and feel of it. It's so kind of old-fashioned. It's got those weird trapezoidal tabs that have been there since, I don't know, 1999 or whatever year Chrome came out. Starting with Chrome 68, which is coming out later in the year, they're actually changing the look and feel to match Google's still not released new Material Design 2 spec, the design language they have. And they're going away from hard-edged corners to rounded rectangles, rounded corners. And if you get Google Chrome version 68 in the Canary build, you can enable a flag that turns all these features on. It's actually really nice. Like all the, the address bar is circular, and it's got a nice look and feel. Like it really addresses the one thing about Chrome that makes me crazy. I'd kind of thought that if you went into, the theme support for Chrome, you could download a theme that would change the style of the tabs and stuff, and they don't offer that. I don't know why, but sometime later this year, that's going to be fixed. So that's cool. And then Microsoft Edge has been out on mobile since, I think, last October, November timeframe. But with the release of RS4 any time now, Microsoft has added timeline support to Edge on mobile. And what that means is that thing we were talking about earlier, where not only will you see the stuff you were working on your PC as you go back in time, but you'll see the stuff you were working on your phone as well. And that's kind of cool. That's all your activity. Yeah, it's awesome.
Which, by the way, it was exactly 30 episodes ago, the last time that I co-hosted Windows Weekly with you, that you made Edge your app of the week. So,
wow, what a weird coincidence.
Go figure.
Are you trying to say that I'm milking my picks? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm saying we're seeing a natural evolution, a progression of these picks, and you're consistent, so that's good.
Yeah. No, Edge, as with you, Edge is infuriating to me. Ultimately, on the desktop, I want to use it, but I can't.
I want it to be so much better.
Edge on mobile is fantastic. Like I actually really like it, and it uses the underlying rendering engine of whatever system you're on is fine. I don't care about that. Well, I like it, but I like the UI of the browser. It's nice.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. If they could just figure out a few things, forget all the extended functionality, just make it work with all the sites that I'm going to use. And these are major sites.
Could you just send them that list?
I'd be happy. I'd be very, very happy.
I'm going to vacuum the cat hair out of my office now.
Mary Jo and I are enterprise people. We scoff at your Xbox.
Nobody's perfect.
We don't want Madden. We want the latest enterprise build. Mary Jo, what do we got?
Yeah, so it's not a Windows Weekly without mentioning Linux at least once.
Wow.
That's kind of been our rule lately, weirdly. So the enterprise pick of the week is SQL Server on Linux, which came out last fall. And the reason I made it the pick today is there's a limited time 30% off discount on SQL Server on Linux happening right now. It's only good through June 30th. So if you want it, you got to go get it now. And to qualify, you have to, there's a lot of fine print. You have to go to your Microsoft rep. You have to have an enterprise agreement.
Right.
It's for the subscription price of the database. But, I talked to a number of people who are very interested in SQL Server for Linux. Like when I posted this, the first response, of course, is, "Oh yeah, they're selling it at a discount because no one wants it." Actually, a lot of people want it. There are a lot of enterprises using Linux these days, and Oracle didn't really have a lot of competition in high-end databases running on Linux. So when Microsoft came out with this, people were pretty excited. And it's not cheap. There are versions of SQL Server that are free for developers, but if you want to get the enterprise version, it goes for $14,200 per core. So, yeah. So getting
Xbox One
this
X was
at 30,
expensive.
getting this at 30% off is nothing to sneeze at. So if you've been kind of curious about SQL Server on Linux or very serious about it, now is a good time to check that out.
And I appreciate that, though. That's a pretty hefty price tag for curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something you just go, hey, let me go get some SQL Server for Linux. You gotta really want that or need that. And it runs on many Linux distributions, by the way. It's not just one. If you run on SUSE Linux, there's even more special promotions going on right now for that too. So yeah.
And now that they have simple Linux on Azure platforms, you can have SQL on Linux on Azure.
Yep.
Wait.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, okay. I guess you're right.
You actually can do that if you really wanted to.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
You could do that.
You could if you
can.
It's a possibility. Yeah. Code name pick of the week.
Okay, so I don't know if this is a code name or a final name, but the code name pick of the week is SwitchBot. So remember, Microsoft's been really trying to play up all these things you can do by building bots that work with Skype and other messaging systems and platforms. So this week, they published a research paper about this thing called SwitchBot, which is a new Skype bot. And what it's meant to do is pretty weird, but they claim it's working. It's meant to help people detach and reattach from when they're working. So, you know how you go home and you're answering emails and maybe you've had a couple beers or whatever, and you shouldn't really be answering emails or tweeting. I'm not saying that from from personal experience, but it happens. This is a bot that's on Skype that's meant to kind of guide you, like, hey, you're leaving work. You should just stop doing work things now. And when you come in the next day, hey, what are your priorities for today? Like, what are you thinking about for work? And they claim in their tests that they found this makes people way more productive and efficient. I could see that, actually. Everybody needs some downtime.
Is this AI driven?
It is AI driven.
It better be.
And so listen to this. This was a cool little fact that was buried in the information on this. One of the main people working on this project is named Jamie Teven, and she is Satya Nadella's technical advisor.
Ooh.
I'd never heard of her before. And I was like, oh, who is she?
You know why? She's an AI.
Yeah, she might be an AI. But she She also worked on calendar.help, which is something we haven't talked a lot about on Windows Weekly, but this is another bot that Microsoft built.
Right.
And it's in preview right now. And it uses Cortana to help you schedule meetings. Use it through email. So, you could say, hey, could you set this up so I can meet with these people in Seattle next week in a coffee shop somewhere that's near downtown? And this bot helps you arrange this. It goes back and forth with you and the people in the meeting over email. It's still in private. I guess they call it exclusive preview or private preview, but I think that should be coming out of preview fairly soon. So if you haven't checked out calendar.help, it's free. It's available to people to sign up for and try out if you have Outlook, Calendar, Google, or Office 365.
I'll try it.
Yeah.
I want to see if it's a nanny, a nag, or if it actually kind of learns my patterns.
What was the name of the person you said was doing this? That's Satya Nadella's technical assistant?
Jamie, like the woman's name Jamie, and Teevan, Teevan.
JT.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I did look into signing up for calendar.help. I don't actually schedule that many meetings with people outside my organization, so I probably wouldn't be a good fit. But it asks for tons of permissions on your Outlook, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. So I didn't do it.
All right.
Interesting.
Beer pick of the week, and I kind of like this because it's Birrifico del Ducato La Luna Rossa. It's
yay! I'm so glad you pronounced that. I'm like, I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I bet Padre does because it's a beer pick from Italy. And a lot of people have this antiquated idea that Italian beer is not good. I hear people say that all the time, like, it's not that great. They don't know how to make beer over there. Well, they do. And this is a beer that is a cherry sour, so very spring-like. It's the way they make it. I looked it up. It's kind of interesting. So they take some young beer that they have. They also take a beer that's fermented in barrels with cherries, and they add in some barley wine that's aged in Amarone barrels, and they mix it all together, and it comes out this brownish color, which isn't that pretty. But when you taste it, you're like, wow, it's amazing. It's like a really not overly sour, but perfectly sour and very cherryish beer. It's again called Padre
Birrifico del Ducato La Luna Rossa.
You're going to do well in the Vatican.
I know. La Luna Rossa is the beer, and Birrifico del Ducato is the brewery, I believe.
I'll try to pick some of that up. I just got back from Rome about 72 hours ago.
Wow.
Not a big beer crowd. They're mostly wine.
They're mostly a wine crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they drink wine with everything.
Yep.
Like literally everything.
Oh, who doesn't?
Well, also the big meal of the day there it's lunch. It's not dinner. So that's the one where everyone gathers, and then dinner's sort of on your own.
Mm-hmm.
That is a kind of a weird color.
It almost looks like port.
It is. Yeah, it kind of does. When you do stuff with cherries, it comes out that murky-ish.
Yeah.
And then the barrels are what, like amaretto barrels?
Yeah. Amarone. No, so that's a red wine. Amarone. I don't know how you pronounce that either, but
although amaretto is the one liqueur that I've learned to enjoy in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
It's me. It's definitely me. Paul, Mary Jo, thank you so very much. This has been a lot of fun. I mean, this has just been a couple of geeks messing around, listening to Paul rant about everything wrong with Windows.
Are we going to see you next week as well?
I believe so, yes. Unless something happens to me between now and then, like I become seriously ill. But I'm not looking forward to missing what could be my last Windows Weekly appearance for a while. So I know, right? I'm gonna get all choked up. Now, of course, we've got that's it for this episode. But you can find Paul and Mary Jo here every Wednesday, 11 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to leave UTC for Leo when he gets back, or you can watch it on demand at twit.tv/ww. Paul, of course, I'm going to find you at therot.com, right? What are the latest stories? What are the hottest stories? What do you got going on?
Sometime today, I hope, because I'm going away tomorrow, I will finally publish my review of the HP NVX2, which is that Qualcomm Snapdragon cat-based thing.
Which you previewed. You previewed the review a little bit during the show.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it's tough because the hardware is great, as far as the form factor and everything. It's a beautiful device. I suspect that the Intel version of this, because there is one, will be an incredible computer. But this, it's just held back by Windows 10 on ARM. It's too bad. That's kind of the big thing right now. I've been trying to get this one out. It's just these things take on a life of their own. So I will shoot for that today. But I'll get this to Mary Jo. I don't know if maybe I'll bring it to Build if that makes sense. Or
yeah, that'd be cool. Yep.
I can ship it to you otherwise or whatever. But I'm going to be in
one
Boston.
that Leo has? Because Leo also got an ARM powered.
Yeah, same one.
In fact, I think that's what he's using while he's in Tokyo. Or
is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I'd be comfortable.
That's why he's posted nothing.
Yeah.
It broke on the first day, and that's it. Mary Jo, where can people find you and the All About Windows blog?
All About Windows? What?
Microsoft. Well, hey,
Thanks,
look,
you're going to say all about
At least
Android.
I didn't say all about Android.
All
Exactly.
about IoT.
Allaboutmicrosoft.com. And we'll be things are going to be heating up soon here because Build is coming up very shortly. And we're going to do Windows Weekly live from Build on the first day of the show from 3 to 5 Pacific. And then we're still trying to work on doing a meetup at Build. But, man, it's been really difficult to find a space this time. We've got Colleen helping us now from Twit.
Raphael lives in the area. Maybe we could just have it at his apartment.
Oh, man. Can you see like 100 people showing up? Hey.
Oh, I can.
Oh, man.
I can see it.
So we're working on that still, but it's going to be Tuesday night if we can pull it off. And if we can't pull it off, we'll just go drink somewhere and everybody can come join us.
I'm telling you, you got to reach out to Lou Maresca because he can probably hook you up with some local spots.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
or the Treehouse.
That's a good point.
Have a meetup at the Treehouse.
Oh, man, that would be
Everyone has to come
amazing.
dressed
They'd
as
never
an
let
Ewok.
us. Yeah.
Nub. All right, Paul, Mary Jo, I will see you next week. That's before you go to Build, right? Yeah, Build's in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Father Robert Ballister in for Leo Laporte, just reminding you to have a great day and take your Windows Weekly.